Hi guys, I'm Michelle from Michelle's Romantic Tangle, and I have a estate sale haul for you today from two estate sales, one last weekend and one this weekend. I've already filmed this once, but the light wasn't cooperating, so we're going to try it again and hope that works better. My husband and I last weekend on Friday went to an estate sale, and we bought a hand truck for our daughter because every 21-year-old girl's got to have a hand truck for hauling her thrifted furniture home. And we got a couple of cookbooks. One is an old, is it Better Homes and Gardens or Betty Crocker? That's the red and white checkerboard cover. It's an old 1950s one, which we had a 1990 version when we first got married, and my mother's, I believe, was from the 70s, and mine and hers, of course, don't have all the same recipes. So I'm happy to have an older one. Things like that make me smile. At this estate sale, there was a room that was absolutely full of yarn. It was nice enough, clean enough yarn. It was all acrylic. It wasn't fancy yarn shop stuff. I saw a sign on the way out that said on Saturday everything would be $3 a bag from noon to 4. So we were there at noon. I don't know if a lot of the yarn sold on Friday or early Saturday morning when it was half price, or I just got more discriminating when it was time to buy it. But I wound up with about a dozen skeins, and it's stuff that I'll use for projects. I'm happy with it. But there were also 3 other women in the room with their bags picking out yarn, and I didn't want to be pushy grabby. Nobody in the yarn room was being pushy grabby. That was all out in the front of the house. So what I did head for right away, and what nobody else seemed interested in, were all of the knitting notions. These are called stitch holders, and they tangle together into a big mass. What they are, they're for holding live stitches safely while you're knitting, and they're like great big blunt safety pins. I have some. I can never find one when I need one. And buying them new at the craft store or at Walmart, they're not terribly cheap for what they are, and they're easy to lose. Same thing with cable, what are these things called? Cable needles. You hold live stitches while you're twisting cables, and I usually use an extra double pointed needle or something. I'm too cheap to go buy these because this brand new would have been probably the $3 that I paid for a bag full of knitting notions. I got stitch markers, which go on your needles between the stitches to help you keep track of your space. And I've got 2 prescription bottles from somebody else that are full of stitch markers and darning needles, and I think this one might be point protectors. I don't know what this was, but it's got all of the warnings on it. So I bought at a thrift shop a few weeks ago, or a few months ago, a little plastic organizer of little drawers, and I'm going to put all this stuff in there so that when I need to find these things, hopefully I'll be able to find one from now on out. So after I got the yarn, about a dozen skeins of yarn, a great big stack of felt, and then we went out into the front of the house to So whoever lived in this house, there was someone obviously into crafting and knitting and crocheting and plastic canvas. There's a lot of plastic canvas. And someone was a Civil War buff. So, where is it? I had all my stuff laid out here and I have moved it. Here it is. I got 5 Civil War issues of the New York Times, and I was hoping that there would be old, interesting ads and maybe a little bit more besides the Union victory and the Battle of Gettysburg. My kids and I aren't studying the Civil War right now, so I may pass these on to another homeschooling mom. Someone's got to want them. And at the point where it's $3 per bag, kind of anything you can tuck into the bag alongside the other stuff is almost free, sort of free. So my boys weren't picking up on that concept, and I was trying not to be obnoxious. unlike another man there who was telling his kids, if you want it, grab it, if you want it, grab it. So we did wind up with the Santa Maria, which my 13-year-old son likes, and I don't know if it originally would have had a Nita and Pinta, and a Canon. Of course, these are displayed on his shelf with the Canon aimed at the ship, because 13-year-old boys. And this clock, which is a Thunder Egg, the battery is just horribly corroded, but it's keeping time. I don't know if we'll be able to clean out that battery compartment, or it's like a craft store clock mechanism, so we may wind up getting it and making a new clock out of it. One of the things that I noticed as my husband and I were walking out the first day were these two piggy banks. They've got the slot in the cork, or the plastic thing in the bottom. I had one of these when I was a kid, and I haven't thought of it in years, but sometimes seeing something like this, it just brings back weird memories. I don't know if I had a squirrel or a bunny. They both look really familiar, so I don't know if maybe I had both, or if maybe my sister had one and I had the other, or what. But I tucked them in with my yarn and I brought them home, and they're going to hang out on the shelf in my sewing room. I got a little travel alarm clock. It doesn't seem to work, but several years ago, my grandmother gave my daughter one of these. It was older and neater. It was leather instead of this plastic. And the plan was that Alex was going to take it apart and use the little gears for making jewelry. The problem was my husband got his hands on it, and after about 5 minutes of tinkering, he made the clock work again, so of course then nobody was going to tear it apart. I hope that maybe he can fix this one for me. If he can't, maybe my daughter will finally get her jewelry parts. And let's see, what else do we get here? This house-shaped shadow box was $4 with all of the contents. The only problem that I could see was I don't want the contents. They're like plastic 1980s teddy bears and those little fuzzy bunnies, and which are cool, like this fuzzy bunny. But for $4, I had to really give myself a talking to. And I don't have to keep the stuff that's in it. The outer piece is worth $4. I think it'll clean up really nicely. And my son on the way home got to looking in it, and he claimed the raccoon and the owl. We looked these up when we got home, and these were prizes, I guess, in tea. And they are selling on Etsy. If, assuming that they're worth what they're asking on Etsy, the owl would pay for my entire thrift shop estate sale haul that day, except it's my son's, and I'm not mean enough to take it away from him, because that would be terrible. My oldest son found this. It at one point said, "The Lord is my shepherd," but that's worn off in somebody's pocket, and it's neat and vintage, and we're going to see if my husband can sharpen it. And if you're going to scold me for letting my son have a pocket knife, he's 18 and that's his project now, not mine. One thing we found, when my husband and I were first married, we had a hand-me-down living room set from a member of his side of the family, and we had lamps that had these enormous blood red glass globes on the bases. I love them. They were ostentatious, they were over the top, but I loved them. And at some point we decided we needed furniture that wasn't that dated, and that, I don't know, I heard they broke in a move, but I didn't see it with my own eyes, and I'm not totally clear on what happened, but we don't have them anymore, and I wish we had them. And in the front room of the estate sale, my sons found this baby, and my 13-year-old wanted it for his room, and it was $4. It had a lampshade when we paid for it, but it was that super brittle plastic and didn't even make it to the car. So in addition to rewiring it, I'm going to be looking for a new shade. Right now it makes my son happy. If a few years from now it doesn't make him happy, it can be mine and make me happy. And last thing at that sale, we had paid for everything. My whole haul came to $17, and on the way out in the carport, I saw the vintage ceramic squirrels. There is an Instagram account, Magpie Ethel, that I follow, and she has got lots and lots of these little guys. And she's got them displayed in some really neat ways, and they always remind me of the ones my grandma had in her yard when I was growing up, which I have safely tucked away in a box somewhere. These guys, there are two of them. One's been repainted. They have, I don't know if the whole shows, they have had their tail, there you go. They've had their tails completely busted off and badly glued back on, and I don't know who repainted this little dude. And if I had seen them on the way in, they would have been in my bags, but I didn't see them on the way in. And they can't have any value. Well, I would have spent a couple of bucks for them because I'm me and that's what I do. But the ladies running the sale were nice enough to let me tuck them into my bags I'd already paid for. There was actually quite a bit of room left in those bags because I was trying not to be obnoxious and stuff them beyond what was reasonable. I was carefully, strategically tucking things, but they weren't on the verge of bursting open. So now I have got squirrels, and I love them, and because they have had their tails busted off and glued back on, they're in a tree in my yard, and I couldn't put nice squirrels in a tree in my yard because I've got kids and possums and God only knows what else crawling in those trees. We're out in the country. So I can smile at these guys outside my kitchen window, and if they break, my world won't end. I won't be really super sad. So on this morning, we went to another estate sale up in Albany. Eugene South, Albany's North. And the woman who lived in that house was a needlepointer. I'm going to insert a picture of what I wish I had bought at that sale. I could have had all four of those pictures for $30. They were framed, they were gorgeous, they were vintage. There was a woman sitting on the bed in front of them, and she was waiting for someone else, and she would not move. I waited forever, and that woman didn't move. And at that point, I still had in my mind the whole, you just want to look at them and maybe get a picture for a blog post, and you're not going to buy them, because I have limited wall space. And the more I think about it, the more I think I should have bought those. It makes me feel a little bit better that I found this piece wrapped around a cardboard tube in a corner of a closet for $2, guys. This is gorgeous. See the little snowflakes? Those are all the most perfect little French knots you can imagine. I can't wrap my head around French knots. They scare me and they're too hard for me, and I can't do them. The other thing, this is my second try at this video, so things have been moved around. I found a sealed Ziploc bag for $1. And this woman's needlework was spectacular. All that I could tell was that these were stitched, but I didn't know what they were. I've got, this is huge, and I still can't figure out how to hold it up. It is a Cruel Bicentennial calendar from 1976. I'm weirdly drawn to bicentennial stuff lately. I don't know why. And this was in the same bag. It's a Cruel Bicentennial piece. I don't know what I'm going to do with these. I may just pin them up on my sewing room wall where I can smile at them, and that would be okay. These were in the doll room. I'll insert a picture of the doll room if I can come up with one. I didn't even look at the dolls because I was being all drooly over the needlepoint, but my boys pointed out a few, and for the most part, they were creepy, guys. They weren't cute dolls. They were creepy dolls, and probably it's a good idea I didn't look at them because I might have taken some home. So, this was originally a kit. All that is left is the pattern, but the whole pattern is there. 12.5 cents. And I don't like teddy bears, but I like the whole paper doll thing, and I'm thinking that I may, like, this is a whole little garden outfit. I may just stitch portions of this. I haven't decided yet. I'll do something. And I got totem poles. I got some vintage Christmas. They weren't priced. If I had known that they were 12.5 cents, I might have been a little less selective. She liked dolls. And I don't know. I like this gal in the green. I think I'm going to stitch her. I have this pattern already, but mine only has these two images. It doesn't have the bottom one. And I love Linda Myers. I've stitched several of her things. And then these are some very vintagey cross-stitch still lifes. There's 3 of them, I think. And this one, I didn't even really look at it. I saw Pinocchio and I saw iron-on embroidery transfers, and that was as far as I looked. This is old school Disney, guys. We've got Sleeping Beauty and Snow White and Peter Pan and the Aristocats, which is my absolute favorite old Disney movie, and Lady and the Tramp, which comes a very close second. So I don't know what I'm doing with this, but I'm doing something with this. And the last thing I found at that sale, I found 2 of these boxed dollhouse furniture kits. They're unsealed, and I did peek inside to make sure that they didn't have a bunch of doll patterns in them, because she had so many envelopes and boxes and all the doll patterns, just all of them. But they look like, I mean, they've got wooden pieces and they have instructions, so hopefully there's enough of it in there that I can make some furniture. I'm looking forward to the challenge. And that's about it from this sale. My grand total was $10, although if I had been smarter and bought those framed pieces, it would have been $40, and that still would have been a really good deal. I am kind of desperately hoping that someone showed up just after we left who loved those pieces as much or more than me, because I don't often get that urge to save the stitches. But in this case, I should have. I wish I had. I hope they don't wind up in a thrift store where they're going to be marked up to twice what they were at the estate sale, and I hope they're good. In the meantime, I've got my newer needlepoint that she finished and my bicentennial pieces that she finished, and I will have fun with her patterns and her dollhouse kit. Thank you for watching. I'll be back within the next few days with a floss tube video, because I'm very overdue on that and have lots of stuff to share with you. Once again, I'm Michelle at Michelle's Romantic Tangle, and all my links to Instagram, my blog, my Facebook are in the description below. I hope to see you again soon. Thank you.